Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring, and what I am sure will be a botched attempt at a playthrough for The Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. What I've done here is I've set up a 3x3 area for the first delve mode scenario in the quest book that comes in the core rules box. It is called Hold the Gates. I've chosen for this scenario to represent me defending the outskirts of Whiterun. I have placed a few settlement buildings, and then we have a wall which is 2 feet up the 3-foot table. There are 2 5-inch gaps in the wall. The wall is impassable. There is an objective marker next to each opening. My Dragonborn, my brave lone hero for this scenario, I will not be using any of the followers or anything else to complicate matters. So we have a lone Dragonborn who is going to race to close the gates as a horde of Draugr and skeleton archers approach from the north. So first of all, we're going to take a quick look at how I've built my character, and then we'll get straight into it and see how badly I can mess up these rules. I was planning on doing this playthrough strictly as a let's learn how to play the Elder Scrolls, but I have had such a hard time with this game, and it's so fiddly. I don't think I'm going to be able to get through it without mentioning a few things that have annoyed me. And here we have one of the things straight away. This here, this sprawl on my table, is all of the cards and tokens that I need to look after one character, to look after the Dragonborn. This wouldn't be a massive thing if this was an adventure game where you controlled one character, if this was a dungeon delve, but it's not. This is a tabletop miniatures game where you could have numerous heroes plus followers under your control. And there's just a lot of stuff here, not all of which is particularly logical in how it works. So first of all, we have our character card here, which covers all of your stats. There is a whole range of keywords, perks, special abilities, and I don't remember what any of them do, and I'm pretty sure that during play I will forget most of them. Along here we have various pools. We have our health pool of 5, our stamina pool of 3, our magicka pool of 2, and our height pool of 2. Oh no, wait, that's just bad card layout. We are height 2, and we paid 74 septums to have this Dragonborn in our party. Because, as with most tabletop miniatures games, you set a points cost, in this case a septums cost, and then you buy characters and accessories up to that value. I have purchased up to exactly 99 septums because it means that we have slightly less monsters to deal with, and it'll be slightly easier for me to film. The items I have equipped my Dragonborn with are hide armor, which is a light armor. I am carrying the Amulet of Talos because it will help me to activate my dragon shouts more frequently. I've picked a basic wooden shield, and I have an iron sword. And then over here, sideways, because it makes it much easier to read the card, we have my quick slot filled with my only dragon shout for this game, which is Unrelenting Force. This card up here isn't explained anywhere in the rules, but it is for tracking your Thuum. This card up here gives me any additional special abilities because I am a party of adventurers, even though I am but one character. And then here we have a quest card. Everybody draws a quest card at the start of the game. I have drawn Ghost of Kienstag, which says, in a very small print that is very difficult for me to read, the spirit of a Nord warrior appears, imploring you to serve justice upon the intruders who are ransacking his tomb. Requirements: there must be at least 3 adversaries. Remove 3 enemy models as casualties during the game. When the third is removed, immediately draw a treasure card as a reward from the ghost, and also gain a victory point. So that's something that a personal goal that I can try to achieve as we are playing. And there's a whole bunch of those. There are different ones for if you are in a head-to-head combat game. You have to filter out the different types of quests that is a particular delve quest. So that's my character, and because the build cost is 99 septums, it means I will be facing 100 septums of enemies. If I had gone above 100, then I would have had to have faced 125 septums of enemies. So for this particular mission, we will be facing 3 Draugr and 2 skeleton archers. And this is effectively a tower defense mission. I have to kill adversaries, getting a victory point for killing adversaries, and once I've got 10 victory points, then I've won. If one of the enemies gets to my side of the board before I have done that, then I will lose. And of course, I can shut the gates in the wall to slow down their advance and help me out in that way. First of all, I need to deploy my Dragonborn on the board in my deployment zone on my side. And my intention here is to use the houses to scurry up around the edge, get to the pulleys and shut one of the gates, forcing the enemies through a narrower space where hopefully I can deal with them. So I'm going to place my Dragonborn just here. And on the other side of the table, I have to deploy half of the enemy forces rounded down. So that will be 2 miniatures. I have tokens here, numbered 1 to 5, and each of the enemies has been given a corresponding number. So I'm just going to pick 2. First of all, we have number 5, if I can get that to focus. That is a skeleton archer. Second token, we have a 3, that is a Draugr. And I can deploy these characters anywhere along this edge of the board. So let's start one here in the ruins, and we'll pop the archer on the other side in the hope that we can outflank the Dragonborn. We now begin turn 1 of the game, and the turn structure is pretty straightforward. First of all, you assign advantage. I believe I always have advantage in a solo game. I can't say for sure. If you've seen my previous video on this, you'll know that it's a little bit of a mess in the rules trying to figure that out, but I think I have advantage, so I will be starting, which means I can perform up to 2 actions with my Dragonborn. These can be things like moving, attacking, shooting. Obviously, there's not going to be a lot of attacking going on while I'm miles away from my enemies. As I want to get up to the gate, the first thing I'm going to do is a move. A move is up to 6 inches. This isn't stated on the character cards, but apparently it is. I'm going to move that full distance, and then I'm going to spend one of my 3 stamina tokens to sprint, which means I can add an additional 3 inches. If I was wearing heavy armor, I would only be able to add 2 inches from sprinting. I put one of these stamina tokens on my card, and don't sneeze when you're using these. It goes on my character card, and then I get my 9 inches of movement. Although you get 2 actions in a turn, you cannot do the same action twice. So for my second action, I'm going to go into a block stance, which means I will apply a block token to my character to gain some benefits from having my shield raised. I thought this was the block token, but it's not. It's an activated token. This one is the block token. So I'm activated for the round, and I'm blocking. I'm hiding behind my wooden shield. And the interesting thing about that block token is it will stay on my character until I either make an attack, choose to remove it, or attempt to boost any other type of action. Having activated the Dragonborn, we now need to figure out what our enemies are going to do. And to do that, we have to use possibly the most convoluted AI system I have ever seen in a game. And I know what they've tried to do. They've tried to make it so that the enemies act as realistically as possible, so that they do interesting things, but it's a frightful chore. First of all, we have to figure out how many are going to activate. That's easy enough. Our Dragonborn came to 99 septums, so we can look on a chart in the rulebook and it says, at that point, only 1 enemy will activate each turn. So we take our tokens that relate to our enemies in play. We have a 3 and a 5. We will randomize those, and I have drawn number 3. Number 3 is our Draugr. Next, we have to look at our Draugr warrior card, and we can see a few things. We can see this symbol up here means that he is a Draugr, and if we look through his keywords here, we can see that he has the Path of Might. Now, we can go and look at the enemy AI reference card for a Draugr warrior. Here's the Draugr warrior card, which has this little matrix here. We are going to roll a black dice. We are going to compare the symbol we roll against might, because our Draugr warrior is a might warrior. And then we're going to look in the rulebook to see what O, A, and M mean. And we'll go from there. I've rolled a starburst and a helmet. Looking back at the card, we can see that a helmet for a might warrior has an O as a result. Let's go and check the rules book. In the rulebook on page 62, we can see that O stands for objective. So we need to go through the rulebook and find the section on objectives. Here we go. It says this response requires that the adversary defend an objective. This usually involves moving towards the scenario objective where possible and then attacking. When an O is rolled as an action for an adversary, the target priority changes from that on the adversary reference card to the target priority below. If there are any ties, the player with advantage or the human player in delve mode breaks the tie. We've got nearest special objective, if not able nearest objective, if not able nearest treasure, if not able revert to target priority on adversary reference card. And target priority on the reference card is he will attack the nearest enemy, then an engaged enemy, then a wounded enemy, in that order. So that's not relevant at the moment. Okay. It says once the target priority is decided, adversaries take the actions listed below. Cautious models. Oh, that's right. We have to figure out what our Draugr's attitude is. So we go back to the enemy card. And we can see that his attitude is aggressive. So we go past all the cautious model stuff. And we go to the aggressive model stuff. If there's an enemy model within 3 inches of the target, that model becomes the new target. Oh look, there's a handy flow chart. Let's figure this out. Target within 3 inches. No enemy within 3 inches. Sprint. Enemy within line of sight? Yes, there is an enemy within line of sight, I think. I'll work that out in a second. If there is, he would do a ranged... Hold on. I thought he was sprinting. Of course. They get 2 actions the same as the human players. So his first action is a sprint, and then if the enemy is in line of sight, he will do a ranged attack if able. If there's no enemy in sight, he will do a block like I did. Okay, so we will do that then, I guess. Although it is worth noting that there are also some special movement rules for this particular scenario. We better check those as well. Here we are in the quest book looking at the delve mode scenario rules, and it says when an adversary would normally perform the F fallback response, it instead performs the M move response. In addition, during an M response, adversaries would choose to move towards the player's deployment edge. Okay, that's not relevant to our particular situation, thankfully. We've established there is no enemy within 3 inches of our Draugr, so he is going to sprint directly towards the Dragonborn. His normal movement is 6, I guess, because that seems to be the standard. And I've checked his character card. He's wearing light armor, so he's going to sprint 9 inches. That was his first action. His second action, he can now see the Dragonborn, but he doesn't have any ranged attacks, so he is going to apply a block token to himself. That goes next to his miniature. Finally, we flip his number token face down to say that he is activated. And that's the general gist of activating the adversaries. And each time it's that complicated. There are different paths, different attitudes, different types of enemy, different weapon loadouts, different objectives. And honestly, what's wrong with just going charge towards the nearest enemy or the nearest threat based on strength, number of wounds, whatever, and hit them with clubs? I think they've tried so hard to make this as realistic, and they've built in these structures and these systems that just feel like they're not really adding anything to the game. So many of these things I feel you could strip out, and the core mechanisms of the game are really fun. There's a stamina system that's really fun, but then they pile on all that other stuff, all those whistles and bells, and you can't get to the good stuff anymore. But anyway, we're now at the end of the round. At the end of the round, you can do things like level up your characters if you've gained enough victory points, and you also draw an event card. At the start of the game, you create an event card. You have to make sure that you've got events that are related to either a delve game or a game where you're fighting against an opponent, and you also have to make sure that the event cards you pick relate to the environment you're fighting in, whether that be a cave, a settlement, or the wilderness. And then there's some that are applicable to all types of terrain, and it's an extra fiddly thing. But at the end of it, you will have a curated deck of event cards, and you draw one at the end of each round. So that's what we're going to do now. And we have got shadow marks. First of all, we have to look at these icons at the bottom. I think the I means this is an incident, so this is a one-off occurrence of something. You can sometimes draw quests. The green symbol there means that it's a settlement event. This flaming brand means that it is a delve event. And this icon here, that is a spawning icon, which means we have to spawn 2 new enemies on the board. To spawn new enemies, you take tokens relating to the minions that are not yet on the board. So we have tokens here for 1, 2, and 4, and then we will randomly draw 2. We've got number 4, that's a skeleton archer. So our second pull, number 1 in this case, is another Draugr. And then we will deploy those at the other end of the board. Finally, we go back to our event card and we read the text. It says, choose one piece of scenery no closer than 8 inches to one of your models. If possible, place it as far away as possible otherwise. Choose one piece of scenery no closer than 8 inches to one of your models. If possible, place it as far away as possible otherwise. Place what? Place a treasure token at random within that scenery piece or in contact with it if it is impassable. Okay, clunky wording, but I get to place a treasure token on a piece of scenery on the board that is more than 8 inches away. So let's see if we can put it in contact with this house over here. Unfortunately not. So I'm going to put it just on the tree, which is out of shot. Here's a treasure token. It's got a little treasure chest on it. And that's it. That's the end of the first turn. On the start of turn 2, I have to remove my activated token. My block token will stay unless I boost an activation. Furthermore, I regain 1 stamina and 1 magicka and 1 thum. So I regain the stamina that I spent to sprint last turn. I now have my 2 actions, and it seems like a good idea to try and get that treasure chest because there might be a cool weapon in there, which is going to help me clear out these undead. So I am actually going to run. Because that will involve boosting, I will lose my block token. And again, I have to spend a stamina token to boost this move. I move my 9 inches. Unfortunately, that is not enough to reach the chest. I am not able to search the chest unless I am in base contact with it, so I may as well go back to blocking. And that's that. We now need to activate one of our Draugr, which means we take our 4 tokens representing the 4 miniatures on the board, and we will pick one at random. The only problem is I've already forgotten which number relates to which miniature, because what you do is you have a matching token that you put on each of the unit cards for the adversaries, but there are no pictures of the miniatures on the unit cards, so I've got 3 Draugr cards lined up at the side of the table that all just have the Draugr stats on there, and then each one's got a little token on it, a numbered token, and I can't remember which one is which on the board. So that's a bit of a laugh, isn't it? Anyway, the token I've drawn is 4. So that's a skeleton, and I believe it's the skeleton that I summoned at the end of last turn, which is that one over there. Let's figure out what he's going to do. Looking on the skeleton card, we can see that he follows the path of shadow and he is still classed as a Draugr. So we need to roll on the Draugr chart and compare our result against the shadow path. I rolled off camera and rolled the 3-star symbol, this one. So looking at the shadow column here, we got an M result. So now we need to go to the rules book. I believe M stands for movement. So his first action will be a move, and then we will see what he will do for his second action based on what it says in the rules. So yes, M is move, and the skeleton archers are cautious. So if we look at the chart here, we can say move cautious. Is there cover available? No siree. So he will move the maximum distance, and then try and block. Blocking requires a shield. He doesn't have a shield. He's got a bow and arrow. So he will hide if he's able to. But I believe you have to be next to terrain to hide. And there's no terrain there either. So I'll double check the rules for hiding. But I believe our skeleton archer is going to amble 6 inches up to the gate and then just stand there like an absolute lemon. The skeleton archer moves 6 inches closer. It's not possible to hide if an enemy has clear line of sight to you. So if my skeleton archer had deviated behind the wall, he would have been able to hide. However, the rules specifically state that he will travel shortest path possible. So he is literally just going to amble forwards 6 inches and then just stand there within shooting range of the Dragonborn and not shoot the Dragonborn. So our very complicated AI system has resulted in the skeleton archer doing the dumbest thing possible. He could have hidden, he could actually have fired off a shot and tried to hurt the Dragonborn, but instead he's just gonna stand there. It's now the end of the round, so we draw another event card. We spawn a maximum of 2 enemies, so we will spawn our final Draugr. And then it says disease. Choose one of your models. That model must pass an endurance attribute test or receive a diseased diminishing effect card. Just because. But first, let's spawn this guy. Our character card says the Dragonborn has an endurance of 4, so we have to roll this dice and we need to score 4 or less. We have rolled a 5, so we are poisoned. That means I get this diminishing disease card, which tucks under your character card and modifies the various stats. And each round, it will adjust a little bit and the values will change until eventually it goes away. And just look at the state of this. Because the cards are different sizes, the rows don't line up. So not only does this card work the wrong way in that as the disease diminishes, you push the card in rather than pulling it out, so that eventually it's pulled and removed away completely. So not only are you pushing it the wrong way, but once you get down to here, it becomes more difficult to know which stat it's actually relating to. Honestly, it's just slapdash. I don't think I've ever been more aggravated by a game. I don't think I've ever seen a game that tries so hard to make even the smallest thing a niggling annoyance. It's a new turn, it's a new day. Let's put all of the nonsense behind us and crack on. First of all, we remove our activated token. And I want to grab that treasure chest, so the first thing I'm going to do is move up to it. Because I am not sprinting, I will not lose my block token. Oh, and I should also mention I got my stamina token back at the beginning of the round. I am now in base contact with the treasure chest, and apparently because I'm an adventurer, I am allowed to do a search action on the treasure chest as a free action. So we flip the token. It is a locked treasure chest. I have a choice at this point. I can try and smash it open, or I can try and pick the lock. I'm going to attempt to pick the lock because I have the lock picking skill on my character card. My agility is 4, but it has to be modified by 1, so I need 3 or less on the skill dice. And I have rolled a cross with a stamina symbol. What that means is I would get a stamina back if I needed one, but I have failed in my lock picking attempt. Furthermore, because it was an X, I have activated the trap in the treasure chest, because apparently in Whiterun we leave trapped treasure chests under trees for silly dragonborn to try and steal from whilst they're in the middle of an invasion. So I get to draw a trap card and see what happens. Here we have a small deck of trap cards. I take the top card. It says Bone Alarm Trap. At the end of this action, an adversary within 9 inches instead of the usual 6 inches will react. No line of sight is required. So we'll see whether one of the Draugr is in range of that in a moment, because having resolved this trap, I do get the treasure from the treasure chest, and apparently my Dragonborn is a treasure hunter, which means I get to draw 2 treasure cards. Here we have a deck of treasure cards, one of 3 different decks of treasure cards, I think, and I believe this is the right kind. So I will draw 2. My first one is a torch. When equipped, the bearer is treated as a light source with a 2-inch radius. Not helpful. And our second card is Poison. Discard this card before an attack with an equipped weapon not bound to add a black dice to the skill test. Weapon gains keyword poison health for this attack. There we go then. I'm going to put that in my spare quick slot. And having dealt with the treasure chest, we take the token away. Unfortunately, although I have an action left, there's nothing much I can do because I'm not allowed to move again. So that ends my activation, and we just have to check whether an enemy Draugr is within 9 inches. He is not. At this point in the proceedings, we are supposed to do the AI thing again for the Draugr, but I'm probably just gonna randomly pick one and have it advance and shoot if it can, because it feels like for all the different chart comparing and everything else, that's pretty much what they should do. Okay, it's time to randomly pick a token. Hands up. Who remembers which token relates to which miniature? I don't. I've drawn a 3. That's definitely one of the Draugr. But which one? I need a new system. Something is amiss. There must be another way to keep track of which Draugr is related to which number that I'm being too dense to notice. Tell me in the comments how dense I am being. I can't even do a D6 randomize because there's no basic D6 in this game. It's all custom dice. Right, I've got tokens numbered 1, 2 and 3 relating to Draugr 1, Draugr 2, Draugr 3. I'm going to pick one. That's the one that's going to activate because I'm completely lost. It's Draugr 3, so it's the guy who's closest to me, so that's probably for the best. He's aggressive, so he's going to sprint 9 inches towards me and then try and hit me. But we know that he's not going to be in range, so he's going to get as close as he can and then put his block on. And there we have it, that's the activations for the enemies. We need to draw an event card. We've got a spawn of 1, which we ignore because we're already maxed out. And then we have another incident. It says, what was that? If the adversary rules are in effect, choose a point on the gaming area within 6 inches of one of your models. The adversary spawns from that point instead of a table edge. If the adversary rules are not in play, discard this card and draw again. Well, there's nothing to spawn, so nothing happens. The last thing that happens in the round is my disease starts to wear off. I have 2 actions available to me now, and I think, for a laugh, for my first action, I should do a dragon shout, just to, it's a Skyrim game, let's do a dragon shout. Everybody who can do a dragon shout has 3 Thum available, and you can power up your dragon shout. You can do a level 1, a level 2 or a level 3, expending the relevant amount of power to do so. And the shout cards look like this. I can do Unrelenting Force on a target within 6 inches, and we can see that it does some damage and it will do a force push as well. I'm going to use all 3 Thum because I have the Amulet of Talos, which will allow me to quickly regenerate it afterwards, and I will get to roll green, red and yellow. I think I am a little red-green colorblind, so actually it's easier if I look over the top of my viewfinder. That's a green and a red, a red and a yellow. So that's what I'll be rolling to attack. We're going to see a full-on attack here, and we'll see what the results are. Now, the way this works, because I'm doing a dragon shout, I am testing against my strength attribute. Normally that is 5, but because of my disease, it is currently 4. So I will be rolling this white dice and trying to get 4 or less. The red and the yellow dice will determine damage if I'm successful. The green dice can help me to achieve my target value by reducing the number rolled on the white dice. It's a very cool little dice system. So I have rolled a 2, you minus the 3, it's a hit, so I have inflicted 2 red damage. However, the Draugr is wearing light armor, so he may be able to resist that damage. Light armor lets him roll 1 yellow dice in defense, and for each success he will cancel out 1 of my hits. It should be noted that he is blocking, but he is blocking with a 2-handed sword, and blocking with a 2-handed sword works in a completely different way to blocking with a shield. You cannot block a ranged attack with a 2-handed sword. We roll the yellow dice and he has rolled nothing, so we inflict 2 wounds. That is enough to kill him outright. If he was to survive that, he would also be force pushed, and it would be a total of the damage inflicted plus an additional 2 inches, so it would have blasted him back 4 inches across the board. However, he's just dead, and that will net me 1 victory point, 1 very small victory point. I can add that to my pile of cards and stuff. Now, this is an interesting point. Normally, if you boost an action, you will lose your block, but boosting involves spending stamina. When you attack with a Dragon Shout, it refers to using additional Thum as boosting. So, does that mean I lose my shield? I'm going to say yes. And then for my second action, I want to try and get over to the pulley to close the gate. So I am going to run 9 inches, and that will cost me 1 stamina point. At this point, you've seen quite a lot of the game in motion, so I'm going to speed through things a little bit. I'm going to skip ahead. I'm not going to show absolutely everything that's happening on camera, and then I will pick up on anything interesting that happens as we go. It's the end of the turn, so in the Draugr phase, a Draugr advanced, and oh yeah, I suddenly realised that I could just put the tokens next to the miniatures on the board instead. I'm not sure why I wasn't doing that anyway, but it seems to make more sense to have the numbered tokens next to the miniatures rather than on their unit cards. Anyway, we're going to spawn the Draugr that we just killed because they will keep coming back. And then we have this Divine Inspiration card which says, choose one of your models. That model may reroll any number of dice from its next skill or attribute test. So this is another card to add to my pool of cards for my Dragonborn. We've just reached the end of the next turn. I was going to use one of my actions to close the gate, and then I suddenly realised if I do that, the enemy can't get into me. I need to kill 10 victory points worth of enemies to win the game. So if I shut the gates and stop them getting in, how do I win the game? So I left the gate open, and instead I did a dragon shout, a level 2 dragon shout, and completely popped the head off of another Draugr, which earned me another victory point. And then for my second action, I just put a block token on again. And I feel like I can just turtle here now with my block up, doing a shout to anybody who comes into range. In the Draugr turn, it was the other skeleton, the one at the far end of the board, that activated. He advanced 6 inches, and then going by the AI, he would have just stood there like a complete fool. So instead, I let him take a pot shot at me at long range, which he completely missed because the skeletons are a terrible shot. And then at the end of the round, I drew this card, which spawned the Draugr back onto the board and allowed me to heal a certain number of hit points amongst my models, which was obviously of no benefit to me at all. And that ended the round. And I feel now like I'm treading water a little bit. I feel like this game is not challenging me. I've ditched the AI and I'm already letting the skeletons do more intelligent things to attack me. And I know that at the start of each turn I'm going to generate 2 Thuum because of my Amulet of Talos. I can keep dragon shouting them. If they're getting close, I'm pretty decent with a sword. I don't know. It just feels like this game is going nowhere and it's just not challenging or exciting. I think a lot of the problem is that I have used a party of 1. If I'd had multiple characters, then we would have been activating more than 1 Draugr a turn, and we might have been under a little bit more pressure. And obviously we're on a 3x3 board with not a lot of miniatures on it, so there's a lot of space. But even so, I think the game would be facing the same issues. And I'm really not sold on this as a solo experience. I've said before and I'll say again, there is a core of really good rules here. I really like the stamina system. I really like the dice system for resolving combat. I think that's really clever. But then what they've tried to do is they've tried to model every single thing that is in the Skyrim video game. And you can't do that. It's too much. There's certain things that can only really be achieved in a video game. There are certain levels of detail that when you embed that all into your game, all you are doing is just making it difficult to deal with. There's a difference between a meaty game you can sink your teeth into and a game full of grit that gets stuck in your teeth. And this game is gritty. It's that really granular, detailed, everything is broken down into so many little steps. They can't even have consistent blocking rules between shields and double-handed swords, and that's the sort of thing that I think you can abstract that out slightly in miniatures games, tabletop games, board games. You don't need to say, oh well, you can block with your double-handed sword, but it's slightly different to blocking with a shield and it has this extra thing that can be done. You don't really need to approach game design that way. Not when it's on the tabletop. When there's a computer that's doing all the calculations for you, when there's something that's doing all that on the fly for you, that's fine. But in this situation, what would have been the harm in abstracting out the blocking rules and saying you can block with a shield, you can block with a sword, but you can't do a shield bash? That's what it should have been. Because with a shield, you can do a regular shield block or you can do a shield bash. If you've got double-handed sword, you can just do a block. You can't do the shield bash because the clue is in the name. And I don't see why they didn't do that. And then every turn you have these event cards and you've got to curate that event deck before you even get started. You've got to figure out what environment you're fighting over. And there's so many gritty little rules and gritty little details. And I don't think a lot of that would matter as much if it was just a case of you were picking an army, your friend was picking an army, and you were just going to have a battle, maybe with a few Draugr roaming around the battlefield. If that was the case, you don't even need to have all of that AI built into the Draugrs. The designer of this game, or the designer who worked on this game and evolved it from Fallout, worked on The Walking Dead All Out War, which isn't a game I particularly liked, but I was very impressed with the way that it modelled moving hazards in the form of the zombies. In that game, when you got too close to the zombies, they would lurch towards you. And that kind of happens in this game. If you get within 6 inches of an enemy and you're in line of sight, they will activate, but they will activate using that AI system, that long, cumbersome AI system that involves referencing 2 different cards and then a flowchart in the rulebook, which is way too much effort, way too much detail. Just having it that if you move within range, they swing at you with a sword or they'll take a pop at you with a bow and arrow. That's all it needs to be. But I think they've tried to add in all that extra AI to make it a compelling experience for solo play. They've tried to add in those things that make it interesting, and so it's like you're playing against someone who is more than just a stupid enemy. And that's where the game, I feel, is falling down, because it's tried to do too much. It's tried to cram in too many things, and they should have, in the first instance, just released a 2-player skirmish game. Just the core rules, the bit that says this is how you activate your units and this is how you fight. Release that with the Stormcloaks and the Imperials and go with that. And then once people are playing that and once people are enjoying that, you say, hey, you can introduce roaming monsters. Here's some Draugr that you can introduce. And then go from there. And then if you really want to, create a completely separate set of solo rules. Something that is robust in its own right. Something which isn't also a halfway house for a 2-player game, and also is supposed to handle co-op as well, but I'm not really sure how. Overall, I feel like I'm being so negative towards this game, and I kind of am, because I had high hopes for it, so obviously it's disappointing when there's so many issues with it, but they're issues that they feel like they shouldn't have been there. They feel like they should have been ironed out. They feel like they should have been addressed so early on. I feel like if you'd have given this as a blind test product to someone, they would have gone, I don't even know where to start. What am I doing? And that's just frustrating. It's aggravating. And I have never experienced a game that has frustrated me to this degree. And I ploughed through the Doctor Who Exterminate rules and the Alien vs Predator The Hunt Begins rules and actually beat those into games that I actually enjoy playing. This game, I'm not there yet. I'm not enjoying my time with Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, and that's a bad thing. I love the miniatures, I love the core experience in terms of the stamina system and the dice mechanism, and I like the fact that there's a little bit more to things like blocking than just, oh, I'm going to use my shield to block. You have to preempt the attacks and you have to put a block token on your unit, and then when someone attacks you, you can keep that block token on and you will get an extra dice in defense. However, you can actually choose to spend the block token to level up your block so it's more powerful. Furthermore, if you then also spend a stamina token, you can turn it into a shield bash and stagger the person that's attacked you. So there's like 3 levels of block, and I do like that. I like that granular nature of it. They've added in little stratas of strategy. There's things that you can go, okay, well I can do that, but then next turn I'm going to have to spend my action again to get my block back. Whereas if I just use it now just to do a basic power up on my armor, I get to keep it. Those are interesting choices, and those are interesting choices that I think add to the gameplay. But then they've gone way too far with other things. They've introduced so many elements that I don't feel they're adding anything to the game. I really don't. There's so many things like, when you find a treasure chest, you have to do a search action, and then when you reveal the treasure chest, it might just open, but then again, it might be locked, it might be trapped. You can bash it open or pick the lock, and then if it's trapped, then that will happen. And it just keeps going, it just keeps escalating. Nothing simple, nothing straightforward. And at this point, I can't see myself playing this as a solo game. What I would like to do, I would like to get some warbands put together and try it that way. But even then, I can already see things that are aggravating. Even now, playing solo, my Dragonborn character, in addition to my character sheet, at this point in the game, I have an additional 12 cards. That's on top of my character sheet. And then I also have my stamina pool, my magic pool, my health pool, and then there's all the keywords that I need to figure out and memorize. There's all the perks I need to memorize. There's all the special abilities that I need to memorize. And that's for one character. If I create a warband with multiple heroes in, even just 2 heroes, that's twice that to deal with. Then you also add followers in as well. Followers aren't anywhere near as complicated, but followers are more like what you would expect from a skirmish game of this nature. When I put together a team for burrows and badgers, it's one line of stats with maybe 1 or 2 special skills associated with that one line of stats. And then most of the time it's, yeah, you can give them a different weapon or whatever, but you give them the weapon that's on the miniature, and normally that's just a slight modifier on their attack or defense or whatever, and it's so straightforward and it's so streamlined and it's so easy to figure out what you're doing. And this game is just a million miles from that, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why. They wanted to model the video game. But if you want that level of detail, that level of intricate world building, you play the video game. A tabletop game is supposed to give you the flavor of that world. It's supposed to give you the feel of that world. You're supposed to be able to look at the miniatures and go, I recognize these characters, and they're doing things that I recognize from the games. So this Dragonborn is doing a dragon shout or whatever. It doesn't have to attempt to accurately portray every single thing that the game provides, that the video game offers. But I feel like what started as a playthrough has turned into something of a rant, and I don't rant on my channel often. It's not something I like to do, and normally when I'm being quite sedate and just sort of talking about things that I'm necessarily not that keen on, and someone suggests in the comments that I'm ranting, it wounds me a little bit, because I don't like being accused of ranting. I like to feel that I'm more even-handed than that, and I'm fairer than that. But at the moment, yeah, I feel like I'm too aggravated with the game to not rant. And this video has been incredibly long, and I cannot expect anybody to still be listening to the things that I'm coming out with at this point, at this stage in proceedings. So I'm going to cut it there for now. I do expect at some point to revisit Elder Scrolls on camera, perhaps just on a 1x1 battlefield with a couple of units, just to show something a little bit more compact, and something that sees a lot more activations of attacks and defending. But for now, I'm sick of this. I want to go and look at some other stuff. So thank you very much for watching. I have no idea whether anybody got anything out of this, but I feel like I've just had some kind of therapy session. If you have liked the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you've really liked the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.